Hey, welcome back guys. So we have a categories plugin here that we need to deal with. So I want us to be able to add, edit, and delete, which is CRUD. And let's do that quickly, right? Hopefully we can get through all three in one video. So I'm going to click on the add new, and I don't like how this is on the side. Maybe we can move it to the center. So we'll have to go into the plugins and categories plugin, and then let's go to this is the add.php, right? So any reference to underscore user should be changed to underscore category. Cool. This one, let's put a class of text center. That way it will center the text on new record like that. Okay, we don't need an image for our categories unless for some reason you do, then you can leave that in and leave the code also in the controller side for uploading the image. That's the code we used in the users thingy there, users manager. But in our case, we don't need to upload any images, so I'm going to remove that. First name will change to category name. All right, so, and the actual references to the column name is category, like so. Okay, so let's leave that in. Now the slug is optional. You could edit this, I guess. So let's just do slug, but that is optional. So usually I end up forgetting the placeholders. So let's not do that. Let's just say enter category name, and on last name here we'll say slug URL friendly name. Or instead of slug here, because we're repeating ourselves, let's just do that, URL friendly name, and say optional. All right, and then let's go ahead, and there's a part where we have to select whether it's disabled or enabled. I think a select will do better. So let's remove this email part, delete that. Here we have, if it's active, right? I'm just gonna say, instead of select, generally you want it to be active. So you say yes, and yes equates to 0, which means it's not disabled, because remember the column name is disabled. That's the real name. So let's change that as well to disabled. And this one is no, like that, and no translates to 1, meaning 0 or 1, yes or no, and that should do it. So for disabled, oops, like that. Not that it matters because I don't see an ID here anyway. All right, so user role, we don't need any of this. There's password and retype password, we don't need any of that. And then we have back, and we have the save button. So this is cool. Now before we go any further, this code right here is for image, dealing with images, submitting images. Since we don't have an image, let's remove all of that. Okay, so now if I refresh, this is what I get. So category name and a slug, which is optional, and whether we are active or not is right here. So let's try this category. Let's try food as a category, and active, yes. The URL friendly, the slug is optional, so let's leave that. Now if I hit save, this is going to go to the controller and do its thing. So let's make sure things are good there. So I'm going to go to controllers folder, and of course we're going to the add controller part. Now since we're not dealing with files, I'm going to remove this part here. Let me move that there, and even this, because all that is for files, and even this files okay part I will remove. All right, then any references to add user will be add category, like that, as a permission. We're not doing any password hashing, so I will remove this. No. Let's instead replace this with slug, right? So we need some way to generate a slug. Now, if you remember, we at least have this function, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to go to app models, and this is for the excuse me, models. Where is the base model here? No, wait a minute. How is this working? This is crazy. Oh, okay. There it is. I almost got lost there. So it's inside core instead, and there should be a function in here that I am looking for. And there it is, string to URL. So I'm going to copy that, the name, right? So I'm going to say string to URL and put the post slug in there. So creating a slug is only done when adding a new record and not when editing. Now, this one is inside that model, so which means every model has access to it. So I'm going to need to use this like so. User string to blah, 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 and we get the slug, we get the date created. We don't actually need a date created because that's not part of this. What we really need to deal with is the disabled part. So I'll do this. Now, it can either be yes or no. Actually, the select is always active, so there's no need to do anything here. I can just remove all of that. And this is the insert ID. We're not saving anything after this, so I'm just going to delete this whole part here, like so. So it's as simple as this. And saved, record added successfully. That is cool. So let's try that out. So if I now hit save, alrighty then, we have problems. So undefined variable user on line 6. And that is right there. So let's change every reference of user to category here, because I think that's what we code our model in the plugin.php. If you go up here to where it says controller action, you will see that we named it category over here. All right, so that will solve the error. So if I go ahead and refresh, record added successfully, great, but it doesn't look so great here. So this is the part we should deal with next. But if I go to the list version, I see this, which is nice. But apparently there's no slug here because reasons. I don't know why. So let's go ahead and look for that. Let's go to the table. Make sure that it actually saved inside categories here. Did it save a slug or not? And the slug is empty. That is not great at all. So what I'll do is delete this. Now instead of deleting, I'll use operations and say truncate so that it resets the auto increment value to 0. All right, so let's see why we are not having a slug in here. So what I'll do is I'll mute this so that it doesn't save anything, but then I will do this, and then we don't do any redirects either. I just want to see what's in there before it's inserted. So now we have an empty record set. Let me click add. Here I will put food. This is the only thing I have to click, and click save. So this is what I get. So as you can see, slug is empty. Oh yeah, slug is indeed empty, as it should be. So we need a way. Let's see, post slug is equal to, okay. So this is my bad. You know what, the URL string should come from the category name itself. So that's my bad. Now also it's possible that a user can put their own slug in there, right? Okay. So here we are assuming that this is empty. So what I'm going to do is put an if statement here. So let's say if empty this, if that's empty, then add a slug. Now there's also another situation where the slug that the user has typed in already exists. So we need to confirm that the slug does not exist. Now, unlike putting this to the validation section, we don't need to bother our user with an existing slug. All we need to do is, if a slug exists, we just add a bunch of random numbers to the end, because what really matters is, as long as we have part of the text of the actual category name in there, we should be good, right? Because once we have that name, even if let's say it's food and there's another category named food, then we can have food 1, food 2. That's equally fine, because even when somebody's searching for food, at least the URL will still contain the word food in it, even though there'll be a bunch of numbers there. So let's do a very quick search here. Now I'm going to use the category model here. So I need to do a while loop. Okay, so I'm going to do while like this. While the condition is met, continue looping. So what I want to do here is say category first, like this, right? Now in the first here, I want to put columns that I want to match. So first of all, I want to match slug to the existing slug, which is in here. So copy and let's paste that here, like that. Now we should only do this if the slug is not empty, right? So we'll put an else statement here. Now let me put brackets so that it's easier to see here what we are doing, like so. So let's move that with a while loop. Pretty cool. Let me move this here, like so. Okie dokie. Alrighty then. So while category returns a result here with a slug, we should change the slug if the slug exists. So we're going to say post slug. It's very important to change something that's part of the condition inside the loop here, because otherwise you have an infinite loop, because if none of this stuff is changing here, the result will always be the same and this will keep looping forever. So, but I'll show you how to avoid an infinite loop, just in case you make a mistake and you fail to comply in changing, or maybe you put a condition or you put something changing in a way that it will never meet this condition, or it will never not meet the condition to exit the loop. So here, while that is correct, we're going to just say, and then let's add a random number at the end. So that becomes 0, let's say 99, something like that. So a random number between 0 and 99 will be added to the front of slug to see and check for that until it's done. Now to avoid an infinite loop, just do num like this and say is equal to 0. And then within the loop, you increment num. Okay, so at least that's something changing throughout the loop, but then we should add it as part of the condition, right? So we say while num is less than 10, and so that way it only loop 10 times, right? Because I'm sure while it loops 10 times, it should find something unique, right, within those 10 times. You can increase this number to like 100, because still this only takes a microsecond for computers to do, so you can put a bigger number there. So we're assuming that by the time we get here, we actually have a slug. Actually, this shouldn't be an else statement here. what should be here is this should be separate entities. So I'm going to remove this else. Now the reason I'm saying that is because you see, if the slug was empty and then we happen to just use the category name, we may end up with a slug that actually already exists. And then the problem is because there's an else statement here, once we assign that, we'll skip over this part and just go directly here. So we really don't want that. So let me remove this. This should all be good now. So what we really want is for this to be, let me remove this like so, all right, and remove that. We're just making sure that by the time we get here, we have something in the slug category here that we can deal with here. Alrighty then, guys, this should do the trick. So let me go back and let me refresh and resend this data. Okay, I didn't get any errors, nothing. So let's try save. Okay, so record added successfully. Did I just add that record twice? Let me just make sure. Ah, no, it's just once. At least now we have a slug, and that is good. All right, so let me go back. Let's try to add the very category again and see what happens. So let's say food again and hit save. Now this time it says that category is already in use. Very good. So let me go back. We are good to go. Now let's click on the view. Let's see. Okay, so the view has issues because it doesn't look like it is supposed to look. So let's quickly fix that. Let me go to the view in the admin folder, view right there. So this we can fix very quickly. Now anything that says underscore user should be changed to underscore category. Okay, so we don't need the image part out. First name, let's change that to category name. And let me change both of that to category. Let me change this to slug. All right, so let me change that as well to slug. It becomes sludge. And then I just need to know whether it's active or not. So I'm going to say active. And of course here we just put an if statement for disabled. Let's put our question mark, full colon, like that. And we start with no, and then yes. And the rest is history. So the rest we don't need. Rows and categories here, we don't need that. The rest of the buttons we do need. So I'm gonna leave that. Let me see if there's anything weird here. No. So that alone should fix this page. Boom. So now we can view that record. Cool. And then I can click edit. And this is what we get. So we have a few problems here that we're going to fix in the next video. So far so good. We just want the edit and delete to work. Then we are done with categories. I'll see you in the next video.